Okay, so let's dive into this. Imagine this scene. You're finally there, in that VIP seat you worked so hard for. You've been looking forward to this trip for ages. Maybe it's a reward, right? You're just settling in, feeling good, and then a flight attendant walks up. They've got that look.
Oh, yeah, that look. The one that says, uh-oh, something's up.
Exactly. And they ask you, we need you to switch seats for someone else.
Right. And your first thought is probably, okay, simple mistake, like a booking error or something.
That's what Elisha thought too, initially, just a logistical glitch.
But it pretty quickly became clear, didn't it? This wasn't about the seating chart. It wasn't some routine thing.
No, it felt like something deeper was going on.
Yeah, the whole power dynamic.
Yeah.
Even in just asking, someone in uniform asking a paying customer to move.
So why Elisha? What was really behind that request? And it makes you think about the assumptions people made, doesn't it?
It really does. And how her refusal, her just saying no, kicked off this whole chain reaction.
It wasn't just about a flight anymore. It became this big thing leading to, well, major consequences for the airline.
A real reckoning.
So let's talk about Elisha herself. She's described as a self-made corporate executive.
Yeah, someone who understands her value, knows her worth, and isn't afraid to stand up for it.
And this trip, it wasn't just a random vacation.
No, it was earned.
Yeah.
A reward for sacrifices, for hard work. And that VIP seat wasn't about being flashy.
It was about comfort, right, about getting what she paid for, the value she placed on her own well-being after all that effort.
Exactly. It represented something tangible she'd achieved.
So, flash forward to the day of the flight, everything's going smoothly, airport check-in, security, the lounge, seamless.
The kind of start you hope for, right? Relaxing.
Totally. Then she boards, finds her seat, it's perfect, settles in, and then the flight attendant shows up, polite at first.
Uh-huh. That initial politeness, but then the firm request, it immediately puts you on the spot, doesn't it?
It does. And Elisha, calm but firm right back, refuses. Checks her ticket even.
Just that little action, checking the ticket, it's like asserting her right. Like, see? This is mine. It challenges that imbalance.
And the flight attendant's explanation was just vague. Another passenger needs this seat. Needs it how? Why?
Exactly. No real reason given. And Elisha probably wondered, is there a medical issue? Some actual need?
And then she saw the other passenger.
Ah, right. And the description suggests he wasn't, say, on crutches or clearly needing assistance.
No, the impression Elisha got was entitlement. A white man, business suit, just exuding this air of expectation.
And that changes everything, doesn't it? Suddenly it's not about logistics or need. It feels like it's about privilege.
Right.
Unspoken assumptions.
Right. So despite maybe feeling awkward, Elisha held firm. Said something like, I'm sorry I paid for the seat, I'm staying.
Good for her. But that's when the flight attendant's attitude shifted.
Yeah, the politeness vanished. It became, we need your cooperation, sharper tone. And then that line, it's just a seat.
Oh, that line. So dismissive. But Elisha's response was perfect.
It's not just a seat. It's the seat I paid for. She wasn't being difficult. She was pointing out the basic transaction.
She's basically saying, give me a valid reason, challenging the arbitrariness of it all. And other passengers are starting to notice now.
You can imagine, right? Heads turning, people whispering. Some probably felt for her.
Sure. Others maybe just wanted it over with, impatient.
And maybe a few thinking she was making a fuss.
But for Elisha, this was bigger than one seat, wasn't it? It felt like a matter of principle, dignity.
Especially as someone who's likely navigated being underestimated or asked to accommodate before.
Absolutely. It speaks to that wider experience where certain people are just expected to step aside.
So the tension is building. Elisha's probably thinking, if I give in now, what does that say?
Right. What precedent does it set? Not just for the airline, but for herself.
So she digs in, just keeps saying, I'm not moving, demanding that legitimate reason.
Which the flight attendant clearly wasn't expecting. She just got more insistent.
Backtracking to passenger convenience.
Yeah. And Elisha just cut right through that.
Saying something like, their convenience doesn't mean I give up what I paid for.
Which is the core issue, isn't it? Why
Yeah.
should she bear the burden of someone else's convenience when she followed the rules?
And people in the VIP section are definitely watching now. This isn't normal.
Then that woman across the aisle chimed in.
Yeah, quietly, but saying, she's right. This doesn't seem fair. That little bit of support.
It helps, I bet. But you still hear those other sighs, right? People getting annoyed at the delay, maybe blaming Elisha.
That mix is so common. Some see the injustice, others just want things to move along smoothly, even if it's unfair.
Elisha's strength in sticking to her guns, even with that disapproval, is really something.
And even when some guy complained about the delay?
She didn't back down, just explained her own situation. Tight connection, reason for upgrading.
She had her own needs, her own reasons for being right there.
And then the other passenger, the man himself, decides to speak up.
Oh boy. And his comment, "It's just a seat, you're being unreasonable," just dripping with condescension.
Perfectly captures that entitlement Elisha sensed, right?
Right.
Like his wanting the seat automatically made her refusal unreasonable.
Such a disregard for her having the exact same right to be there.
But Elisha's comeback was brilliant. Calm, direct.
"I paid for this seat, like you paid for yours. If it's just a seat, why don't you take the one assigned to you?"
Boom. You could probably hear a pin drop after that.
Apparently he just went red and shut up.
And then someone else spoke up for Elisha, a younger guy behind her.
Yeah, saying she's got a point. That public validation must have felt huge.
Definitely. But the tension was still thick. The flight attendant realized she was getting nowhere.
So she went off to get a supervisor. Elisha gets a moment, but imagine sitting there knowing everyone's watching, some judging.
That pressure to just give in, make it stop, must have been intense. Sticking it out took real resolve.
And that woman across the aisle again, giving her an encouraging smile, saying, "That was bold. Good for you."
Small gestures, but they matter. Elisha probably acknowledged it, but felt weary. Like, why did I even have to fight for this?
It shouldn't have been a fight at all. Then the supervisor arrives.
Right. And the classic approach. Forced smile, talking about confusion, wanting to resolve it amicably, trying to manage the situation.
But Elisha wasn't having it. Straight up. "There's no confusion. I paid for this seat. I'm not moving."
Clear as day. But the supervisor then tries the other passenger's priorities angle.
And Elisha just shuts that down. His priorities don't trump mine. Just brilliant. Direct.
She refused to let them frame it as her being unreasonable for simply asserting her rights, which led to the next escalation.
The threat of involving security, that's a serious escalation.
It is, but Elisha called their bluff, didn't flinch.
Her response was incredible. Go ahead. Actually, I want to speak with them. I want it on record that I'm being asked to give up my paid-for seat for no valid reason.
Wow. Turning the tables.
Yeah.
Making them accountable for their actions. That probably threw the supervisor completely off guard.
He tried to backtrack, like, "Oh no, just trying to accommodate." But the damage was done.
Elisha pushed further, demanding the airline's policy. In writing.
Smart move. Not just about this flight, but about the rules they're supposed to follow.
And the other passengers are really involved now. The mood seems to shift.
Even the guy annoyed about the delay probably saw how unfair it was getting.
And then that elderly woman just shouts out, "This is outrageous."
And people actually applauded.
That shows how Elisha's stand resonated. One person refusing unfairness can really galvanize others.
The supervisor was clearly stuck, said he had to talk to the captain.
So he leaves. Elisha's probably running on adrenaline, but looks composed. She won the battle on board, but knew it wasn't over.
No way. That experience sticks with you.
So what's the first thing she does after landing?
Finds a quiet spot and calls the airline's corporate customer service line.
Not just venting online immediately, but going through the official channel first. Strategic.
Totally. Methodical, getting it documented, focusing on accountability.
And even while on hold, she's planning her approach. How to frame it.
Yeah, and critically, she framed it not just as bad service, but as discriminatory behavior.
That's a really important distinction. Discrimination implies bias, carries legal weight, it raises the stakes considerably.
She laid out the facts, the entitlement, the threat of security, demanded a direct response from corporate.
And let them know she was prepared to go public if they didn't take it seriously, using leverage.
And she didn't just wait around. Right after that call, she started writing social media.
She knew the power of getting her story out there, controlling the narrative.
She posted a detailed account, facts, flight number, staff behavior, kept it factual, firm.
And ended it with that powerful point about the reality for Black travelers, connecting her experience to something systemic.
And bam, it just took off. Hours later, it's viral.
People flooding the comments, sharing their similar stories. It clearly struck a nerve.
Those hashtags started trending. Hashtag flying while black, hashtag traveling while black. They became like digital rallying points.
Influencers picked it up. Advocacy groups shared it. The reach just exploded.
Her inbox overflowing support, media wanting interviews, people promising boycotts. It became huge fast.
Social media really became the amplifier. People were furious at the airline, demanding they do something.
Memes, scathing comments. The perception was clear. This looked like racism. And mainstream news outlets started reporting on it.
But importantly, Elisha kept her focus, right? She wasn't out for revenge.
No, she kept telling reporters, this is bigger than me. This happens all the time. It's about systemic change.
That elevated the conversation. It wasn't just one incident, it was a symptom of a larger problem. Advocacy groups started calling for boycotts, petitions circulated.
The pressure on the airline was immense. Their first response,
A pretty standard, defensive-sounding email, trying to smooth it over.
which went down like a lead balloon, right? People saw it as totally insincere, damage control.
Yeah, it just made things worse. So then they issued a more public statement.
Promising a review, sensitivity training, the usual corporate playbook.
But the public wasn't buying it. They wanted real action. Firings, maybe? Reparations? An admission of the systemic issue.
And the CEO did an interview, apparently looked super uncomfortable, didn't offer much concrete.
Just fuel the fire. Critics slammed it as inadequate.
Meanwhile, inside the airline's boardroom, you can imagine the panic, watching those hashtags trend.
The COO probably urging drastic action, the CEO grimly talking damage control. But Elisha wasn't focused on damage control. She was focused on dismantling the culture that allowed it.
So the internal investigation gets underway. What did it find?
Well, the flight attendant tried the just following orders defense, but it came out there were previous complaints about her, specifically regarding passengers of color.
Ah, so a pattern. And the supervisor.
Apparently, he was combative at first, but other crew members testified about favoritism, bias. His story started to unravel.
So it wasn't just one bad apple. It pointed to deeper issues in the work environment.
Exactly. And all this time, the public pressure isn't letting up. More stories are being shared online.
Like that black father asked to prove his first-class ticket. Or the woman moved for a supposed double booking.
Yes. Those stories kept validating Elisha's experience and kept the spotlight firmly on the airline industry's problems. There were even rallies at airports.
Advocacy groups demanding industry-wide changes. Elisha must have been overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed, but also maybe invigorated by the support. She kept fielding calls, but her message stayed consistent. Focus on systemic change.
Then the airline finally released the investigation results.
And they were described as damning. Confirmed the staff acted inappropriately and that company policies were inadequate.
So consequences.
The flight attendant and the supervisor were terminated.
A concrete action. But was it enough for the public?
For many, no. It addressed the individuals, but not the system that enabled them.
So the CEO had to come out again.
This time, admitting the need for a complete overhaul of the company culture and outlining real steps.
Like what?
Mandatory bias training for everyone, an independent oversight board for discrimination complaints, and a new passenger rights charter guaranteeing equal treatment.
Okay, that sounds more substantial. How did Elisha react?
With cautious optimism, apparently, emphasizing that policies are great, but ongoing accountability is what matters.
And did these changes have wider effects?
They did. Competitors started announcing similar initiatives, likely feeling the pressure. Advocacy groups pushed for federal regulations.
Elisha even testified before Congress. Rep.
Yeah, talking about dignity and respect not being luxuries, but rights, framing it powerfully.
Her keynote speech later really summed it up, how individual courage can spark systemic change. That whole period was a real reckoning.
Absolutely. Looking back, it wasn't just about one airline's failure. It showed the power of persistence, of solidarity, of people demanding change.
And for Elisha, it sounds like the resolution wasn't just personal vindication, but about paving the way for others.
Exactly. Creating a pathway so others wouldn't face the same injustice.
And the airline, did they follow through? Were there visible changes?
Well, they certainly made an effort publicly. Press releases detailed the reforms. The nationwide training programs started rolling out.
Focusing on bias awareness, conflict resolution, empathy. Important stuff.
There were even reports, anecdotal maybe, but suggesting some employees felt the training was genuinely positive, empowering.
What about that independent oversight board? Did it actually do anything?
Apparently, yes. It started operating, even reopened some older discrimination cases that had been dismissed. People who felt ignored finally got a hearing.
That's significant. A real mechanism for accountability.
And they launched that scholarship program too, right? For underrepresented groups in aviation.
Yeah, an investment in changing the future demographics of the industry itself. A longer-term play.
Still, you can understand why some skepticism remained. Change like this takes time to truly embed.
Of course. And Elisha herself remained cautiously optimistic, right? Aware that vigilance is needed.
And we have to remember the personal cost to her. Going through that, becoming the face of this issue, it takes a toll.
But it clearly motivated her to keep pushing, not just resting after the airline made changes.
No, she channeled it into advocacy, partnering with civil rights groups, launching that Your Voice, Your Power campaign.
Giving people resources, tools, workshops, even an app to document and report discrimination. Really practical stuff.
And she wrote a book, Seating Arrangements, How to Fight for the Space You Deserve.
Blending her story with broader insights into these systemic issues sounds powerful.
It was. And the ripples went beyond just airlines. Other corporations started looking at their own customer service policies, bias training.
It sparked a much wider conversation about racial bias in service industries, advocacy groups pushing for national standards like equity in service.
And it really showcased social media as a tool for marginalized communities to bypass traditional gatekeepers and make their voices heard directly.
Then there was the legislative push, Elisha's Law.
Yeah. Proposed federal legislation calling for mandatory reporting of bias incidents by airlines, with penalties for not complying.
And Elisha testified again.
At a Senate hearing, reiterating that dignity and respect are fundamental rights, keeping that message strong.
Her story really became this testament, didn't it, to the power of standing your ground, refusing to be silenced, inspiring a movement.
That quote attributed to her sums it up. Every step forward begins when one person refuses to step back. Using your voice matters.
It makes you think, doesn't it? About times maybe we've seen something unfair, big or small, and stayed quiet.
Elisha's story is a powerful prompt to reflect on that. What holds us back? What could we do differently?
And there are ways to engage beyond just reflection. Learning more about systemic discrimination is a start.
Supporting organizations doing the work on the ground. And just thinking about our own spheres of influence, work, community, family. How can we use our voice there?
Definitely check out Elisha's campaign, Your Voice, Your Power. See what resources they offer.
And share stories like this one. Awareness is crucial. Injustice thrives on indifference, doesn't it?
It really does. Every time someone challenges unfairness, it sends out ripples. It strengthens the idea that better is possible.
Elisha believed courage is contagious.
Yeah.
Maybe she's right. Maybe we can build that world where fairness and respect are just the norm.
A powerful thought to end on. If Elisha's story resonated with you, please do like, comment, share this deep dive. It helps get these conversations going.